So we could start with a walk that probably everybody knows, and may well have had various wildlife sightings along it. Very popular walk. The obvious one coming out of Hereford, either side of the river, but then crossing the Great Western Way, the railway bridge, referred to by locals as the Lines, and heading out along the left bank of the river, underneath the potential site of the bypass, which seems to have been headed off, and then coming up through past Brainton Church, which is itself a very attractive spot, or going up here, this little path here up to Warham House, which has got an interesting interpretation board. If you've never seen it, you actually have to go almost to the road to find the interpretation board, but it does give you some interesting background on Warham House and the landscapes. And there is an interesting paper, which I think is online, by David Whitehead, about the estates that intersect in this area of the Wye, and which would have been devastated as landscapes by a bypass coming through across the Wye Gorge, which is itself an extremely interesting feature, detailed on the Ice Age ponds pages of the Trust website, where there are quite a lot of very nice car tours, cycle tours, and short walks to explore the impact of the Ice Age on this western approaches of Hereford, particularly in the Brainton area, where there's quite a lot of interest in terms of legacy of the ice. But on this loop walk, the sort of quickest way back to Hereford is to head up onto what's called Brainton Ridge on this footpath, which brings you into Wyvale Wood, which is a Wildlife Trust reserve, on which some members of City Branch are now doing some maintenance work, including improving the boggy paths by putting wood chip down to make them less boggy. This is a rather nice old drover's road following the high ground into Hereford from the west, hence Drover's Wood, which is this piece of access land here, which is owned and I think planted by the Woodland Trust. And then you can follow right the way along and end up at the bottom end of Westphaling Street. But it's rather nice to be able to walk into Hereford on quiet roads. Westphaling Street, relatively quiet, but then you can actually cut through the cemetery and come out on a little footpath into Tower Road, and then you can make your way back down onto the rugby pitches alongside the Cathedral School playing ground, and you hardly touch any of the busy roads. And you can in fact walk back out. There's an underpass underneath the A49 and get right back to the front of the cathedral, with nearly all footpaths, hardly any pavement walking at all. A big favourite, that one. This path, the Wye Valley Walk, I know is very well known. This one is a way back in, perhaps less well known, well worth exploring, because from the higher ground you get a really good view across Hereford to some of the distant hills. On a clear day you can see a very long way from this ridge. So that's one possibility, which might be cause for discussion later on. And if you want to put down a marker to remind you of something you want to tell us all about, then maybe pop it in the chat, and then it won't get forgotten and we can pick it up later. Other routes out, there are quite nice paths heading out, particularly if you're on a bike. You can pick up the Great Western Way, and it will in fact, you're going to have to go, mate. You can come out here. There's a cycleway right the way alongside the railway line to this point, which means that you've reached beyond the edge of Hereford without travelling on either of the very busy main roads. And as I say, this could be walked or cycled. And then you come on to this important bridleway, byway open to all traffic here. And you can head off in either direction towards the woods over this way, and then head off this way down towards Belmont Abbey. And there are quite good approaches. This path is a very nice path across here, very usable. Cross that road then, and then there are small paths coming in along the new housing, and eventually you end up coming out over this little bridge, which is leading onto Golden Post. And just as a geographer, worth mentioning that this ward, or this area here, an administrative area, census calls it a lower super output area, is one of, I think, only one in Herefordshire that is in the first decile for multiple deprivation. In other words, it is one of the most deprived areas in the UK. Herefordshire doesn't have many of them, but it does have that one in that ward there. So you cut through there, and it brings you onto Villa Street, where you can walk alongside the river back into Hereford. But some nice opportunities for walking there. And there is, of course, this park here, the name of which escapes, Belmont Country Park, is that correct? I think Maggie Setterfield, I don't know if she's here. Does anyone know? Anyone intervene and say the name of this new country park that's been created? I think it's called Belmont Country Park.
Don't matter.
And in this direction, you've also got lots of possibilities to get out without using very many main roads. Thanks to the Greenway Bridge, it's possible to head out and go underneath the railway culvert, which does get flooded in a big flood, but that's not very often. And then you can come out by Balfour Beatty's depot. You can come down this road here, past this pond, which was part of the grounds of Rotherwas House, which was situated over here somewhere. And you can head out through the industrial estate, which is most times of the day, and particularly at weekends, is very quiet. And you can get onto this footpath, by which time you've skirted the built up areas and the traffic. And this is a really nice path that leads up under the White Elephant, the Rotherwas Link Road. And it's not a surface crossing, it's actually a cattle tunnel. So you don't have to run the risk of the speeding motorists, the few of them that there are on this road here. And you're then straight up into a lovely orchard and up onto Dynedor Hill. And then you can head out onto the Dynedor camp, from which there are wonderful views back across Hereford. Worth taking binoculars or telescope, as I have done in the past, because you might well be able to pick out your own house or something near it. It's a very good view of Hereford from up here on Dynedor Camp. And then there's a whole network of paths heading south, one of which is a slow way. I'll say a little bit more about slow ways later on. But you can walk right the way through to Ross, hardly touching any roads, main roads at all, just a few crossings on minor lanes. Then eastwards, you've got this path along here, and the landowner has put in a permission path which enables you to work round the edge of the sewage works here, past what I used to call Lake Stinky, which was a great big area that used to flood and was linked to a big manure heap. But that's all dried up and been drained, or it was last time I was there. And it leads you out. It's rather unprepossessing, but quite interesting in terms of industrial archaeology through here, round the side of the munitions factory. Then you can come back along the old railway line past the empty shell store, and that's a popular little local walk for people living in this side of Hereford. And I think quite a few people use it as a dog walk, and it's actually quite a good running route because most of it is on grass and softer surfaces. On the other bank, you've got the option of coming out here along the Wye Valley Walk and Three Choirs Way. Very nice walk along there. And you can park a car on the edge of the city, just here. There's a little car park, Braemar Gardens, I think it's called, and head off this way. And then very nice paths through here, very passable. Leads you out onto this point where there is the wonderful old bridge across the River Lug, just there, onto Hampton Meadow, which is a reserve noted for curlews, where we request that dog owners keep their dogs on a lead and don't run free because they're ground nesting birds, easily disturbed by dogs running around. But it is a trust reserve, and I was lucky to go there in 2020. In April, I'm not sure exactly the date, but it's World Curlew Day, which is sometime in the first 2 weeks of April, I think. And I actually heard one and recorded it. And then I saw several flying. Very good space for seeing curlews on an easy walk from Hereford. And you can make it a loop by going up here to Larport Lane and then coming in. Got to cross Lugwardine Bridge, which can be a little bit unpleasant, but if you pick your moment, you can stick close to the parapet and nip across. The two pavements almost meet, so you're only treading on sort of open road tarmac for a few seconds. So as I say, if you time it right, you can do it between cars, and then you can quickly drop onto Lug Meadows and make your way in on quiet paths, including this one. Well worth exploring if you've never done it. Revels in the name of Holywell Gutter Lane. Holywell Gutter Lane. Comes out past some allotments, but it's an interesting little path around the edge of Hereford there. And then northwards, I don't know how many people have explored this footpath, but if you haven't, it's well worth seeking out. I'll see if I can zoom in a bit. There we go. This path here, try and work out where we are. This is the site of the Sawyer's Arms, where there was a level crossing and the farriery school. This is Perseverance Road down here that leads to the back of the kind of Homer trading estate. This is Perseverance Road here. But there is a little footpath that winds around through the industry and does in fact, round about here, have two lovely trees, white beam trees, next to a little playing field that's in the middle surrounded by industry. And you've got chain link fence right up against you, but no roads, very little road traffic, and the industry is actually not that noisy. So you can cut through there and come out on this one here. And then you make your way up through here. Homer Village is really quite delightful. Highfield House, very interesting building. And then you're straight out onto open fields with some great views back across the city, particularly when you're up here at 114 meters, which is relatively high. And then there are lots of possibilities. It's worth getting up to 116 meters because that gives you a great view of the living landscape of the lower Lug Valley, because you're looking across here. And then there's a huge load of possibilities for walking spread out all across the Lug Valley. A large number of options for walking there. A few years ago, the Trust did have a fundraising event, a Walk for Wildlife, which walked from Hereford along the Lug Valley and gained access to some private land that runs alongside the River Lug up here towards, we were actually allowed to walk along this land here. And I think we use one of these crossing points on the railway line even. Just worth mentioning, when you're on the train next, travelling to Leinster, as you go over the River Lug, and just before you enter the tunnel, as you go past the railway inn, this bridge is a double rail bridge, and it does still have a footbridge, but it's not a public right of way. Apparently, the bridge was put in for the landowner or the owner of the Verne so that he could walk to the station here at Dinmore and collect his paper. That's what the farmer told us, told me and Francis Weeks when we were waiting for the walkers somewhere in this area. But if you look out, you can actually see that footbridge. It's bolted to the side of the railway, and it does look still passable. The other way to get north of Hereford is to head across Lug Meadows and to pick up this bridleway, which is a very good route out. Lots of interest, a variety of routes here, can get flooded, of course. At this point, very interesting place. That is the line of the Hereford and Gloucester Canal going across there. And it's very, very apparent. The track actually goes up over the embankment and down the other side, and you can see very clearly the kind of canal bed that's dry. Been quite a lot of tree work done there recently, and it brings you into Sutton St Nicholas, and then there are some lovely paths heading north. Sutton Walls is interesting, great views across the valley from there, several footpath options. And in fact, this is getting onto another slowway, which is the one from Hereford to Leominster that I've just explored. I will mention a little bit about slowways. Here we go. This is the slowways webpage. If you haven't explored it, it's well worth doing. The idea of the Slowways project is to link every town and village with every other town and village in England, Wales, I think Scotland's included as well, and Northern Ireland, I think, is included. It's very extensive. It's a national project. And if we zoom out, we can see that the network just spreads and spreads across the whole country. Each one of those purple dots is a place, and the greens are the largely theoretical routes between them. The project has been going for some time. It was stalled a little bit by COVID, but soldiered on through it. And some of us are in the process of testing. It's the brainchild of a guy called Dan Raven Ellison, and he has actually trialled one of the 40 routes in Herefordshire. But the last time I looked, there were only just over half a dozen had even been trialled. So if you're looking for an interesting walking project, the slowways are well worth looking at. As I say, some of them have just been drawn as a desktop exercise and have yet to actually be trialled. To see what they're like, whether the styles are intact, whether the bridges are intact, whether there are too much road walking. They're meant to avoid road walking, but not all of them do, because, as I say, they've been done on a desktop by people who don't necessarily know the area. They're just using Ordnance Survey maps. Largely during lockdown, actually, a lot of it was done. Yeah, that's an interesting project that some people might want to get involved in. I've covered most parts of the local area, and I've introduced the Slowways project. Does anyone want to get the ball rolling with any comments about favourite walks from Hereford or close to Hereford? Anything like that, any contributions welcome. If you want to put them in the chat and then speak to them later, that would be good. Any thoughts? Gratefully received.
Nick, I was just going to, I think I was talking to Sarah King about the kind of extended out to the west. Sarah, you were discussing that with me. The like when you go to Wareham House, you keep going out and you go to Brenton, and then you go inland. Do you want to talk? That's one of your favorite walks, isn't it?
It is. It's ironic because that was the one I was going to mention, and then that's the one Nick started us off with, pretty much entirely as Nick described it. So the only bit I would add to it is to make it a little bit longer. So where you come up to Lower Brainton rather than going straight up to Wyvale Woods, which is obviously lovely as the reserve that I'm the warden of. I definitely promote Wyvale Woods. You can go off to the left up to Upper Brainton and carry on along the Wye Valley Walk there. And then if you take the footpath north from there, you cross over the right-hand one there, up to Upper Wood. Yeah, that's the one. You're crossing a couple of meltwater channels from the Ice Age Ponds project.
Which you can see on the contours.
Yeah.
There and there. Yep.
Those are two lovely valleys to walk through. And also that route is on the, as Nick said, it's on the Ice Age Ponds map. And then you follow it back around and come in to Wyvale from that side.
Yep.
Which
we could also mention the geocaches.
Oh, absolutely. There's an earth cache. If anyone has ever done any geocaching, which is a bit like a treasure hunt, you use your phone to find little containers everywhere around the world. There's something like 2 million of them or something ridiculous around the world. You navigate using GPS and a clue to find little containers that you can then log to say you found it. But there's also another form of geocache called an earth cache, and Nick and I set a few up around the Ice Age Ponds project, and one of them is at Brainton, focusing on those meltwater channels. And the idea of an earth cache is you go to the site of the earth cache and there's a series of questions that you have to answer based on what you can see at the site. So you feel like testing your geography and geology knowledge, it's worth taking a look at those. You can find them on the geocaching website. And that's, yeah, you'll get a response from me to say whether you've got the answers right or wrong as well.
I would just like to second that addition that Sarah has made. It used to be one of our favorite walks, and whenever we had visitors, we would always take them out from Hereford and do that extended walk, because there's a really beautiful walk through a wood and then down into the valley, and it's stunning. It's really nice.
And that hill above Upper Brainton where the tree point is, you've got absolutely stunning views from there in every direction as well. I think right the way out to Haybluff and up to the Morvens as well.
Yes, Lower Eaton House is quite an impressive edifice over here, overlooking the river. But I mean, if you want to really extend it, then you can in fact cut across here. Although I found that there's a flooded stream somewhere in this area. The bridge has collapsed. I have reported it to Fix My Street. Worth mentioning Fix My Street. For years I tried to log footpath problems that I encountered on Herefordshire Council's website, but Dave Hawerski from Golden Valley Walkers advised me not to bother with that and instead to go to a website called fixmystreet.com. And I'd recommend that anybody who encounters a footpath problem does that, because Fix My Street uses the Ordnance Survey map rather than the Herefordshire Council's own map, which rather foolishly, I think, doesn't show field boundaries. So if you've got a style, you're really struggling to work out exactly where that style problem is. But of course, with the Ordnance Survey map, you can just click on it. And there is, in fact, a blockage just there. I encountered it on a recent walk. So you can just click on it really quick and simple on the fixmystreet.com. And they not only record it on their own website, but they also forward it to Herefordshire Council, who are then obliged to contact you as the person that reported it to say that they've received the report. And it seems to work a lot better than reporting it directly to the council. So I'd thoroughly recommend that if you encounter any problems on your walks around Hereford. But yes, this extension here, Wye Valley Walk, then leads you into this interesting area, which is Brockhall Quarry, which has its own little Ice Age ponds guided walk. And I think there's an earth cache there as well. And I didn't mention this westward path, but this is a really superb western way out of Hereford, including on a bike, because it is a bridle way. And you've got a cycle path all the way alongside Roman Road now. So you can negotiate this remodeled roundabout and come out here by Barnfields, and you can get right the way through, and Bishopstone is very quiet. Once again, you're moving between two main roads, the A480 and the Brecon Road, and you can get right the way out. And in fact, this is the Three Rivers Way, which is meant to be rideable by horses, and it is. And you can in fact ride a bike on it. Maybe not a road bike, but a hybrid or a mountain bike right the way around here. And then you can cut through here, which means you can get almost out to Oakchurch without touching these dangerous fast roads. I mean, I would never want to walk or ride a bike along this Brecon Road. You know, it's the dangerous bit with the switchbacks. Not a place to be a pedestrian or a cyclist in my mind, but there is a good alternative up here. So yeah, you can get a long way west once again without being bothered by those pesky cars. Any other comments, anybody?
Yes, does anybody else have a walk that they cherish that they would like to tell us about?
We've just got a comment in the chat from Nikki saying there's some information about Brainton's wildlife on the Brainton Parish Council website, especially for the area bordering the river. So if you are doing that walk up to Brainton, have a look on the website to see what you might see whilst you're out there.
So this is just a question to Sarah about the geocache. So in order to access it, you just Google geocache?
Yeah, so I think the website's geocaching.com.
Okay.
And then there's a map that comes up with all the geocaches in the area. You do have to sign up, but it's free to sign up.
Mm-hmm.
And then and Nick's going to show us how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. It's got the usual thing. I'm not quite sure what my password is, but that's the website. I don't know if it gives us access to the map without logging in. Yeah. I haven't got my password to hand. But yes, I mean, there's an example of it. It comes up on the phone, and there are loads and loads of them. The different colours are the different types. I think the green ones are the standard geocaches. And then the earth caches have a different colour, and as Sarah has said, they're linked to, well, what we got a, I don't know if this will work.
Geocaching is an any day, anytime adventure that can take you to amazing and beautiful places, or even just to a place in your town that you've never been before. There are millions of geocaches worldwide. There are probably even some near you right now. Yes, you. To start finding them, just get out your phone or GPS. Go ahead, I'll wait. Then, create a free geocaching account and you're ready to go. The way it works is simple. Just choose the geocache you want to find, then navigate to its location. What you're looking for varies. Geocaches come in different sizes, shapes, and difficulties. Geocaching isn't always easy, so it's okay to get excited when you discover the cache. After finding it, sign the logbook. Trade knickknacks if you want, and log your find online. When you're done, just put the geocache back where you found it, and you're on to the next one. Hey, it's the other way. There's an adventure happening all the time, all around you. Become a part of it at geocaching.com.
It is an American website.
I think we got that.
The UK is well covered, and there are some very, very British sites to discover. Yeah,
Yeah.
But it is fun, and there is a particularly clever geocache, not Earth cache, but a standard geocache. Very, very clever one by the Rowing Club.
Ooh.
Well worth seeking that one out, possibly as an intro to geocaching. It was my intro to geocaching, and it's a good challenging geocache, but not impossible. But you'd need to get your account. But as it says, it's free. You get a password and you're away.
Nick, a lot of people, I think, when they go walking, they like to walk out to a pub, perhaps. Do you have any walks that you can recommend, which are walks aside from, well, there's always a bunch of carrots.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the Bunch of Carrots is not too far, which is out here as you head out along this one. Could be included in the Curlew Walk, for example. If you were to go a little bit further and to follow along here, you come out by Mordeford Bridge, and once again, it's a bit of a dash between cars, but there are bits of pavement along there even. And then once you're over there, you can cut through the churchyard, and then the footpath around the back of the school leads you into the Moon at Mordeford. And of course, if you're looking for walks close to Hereford that maybe you wouldn't walk all the way there, you could park in one of several car parks, including Hoffwoods, and then you've got the whole of the Woolhope Dome, which is a whole other evening talk, really. I mean, the Trust has a lot of reserves there. It is really dense in paths. I was out there the other evening, Sunday evening. It is just a wonderland, a fantastic place to explore. And you have got two pubs, which I think are now both open. One of them was closed for a while, but in Woolhope, as well as all the Trust reserves, you have got the Crown Inn and the Butcher's Arms, which is a bit of a Herefordshire institution. In other directions, this pub's now closed. That was the Yew Tree. That was Len G's restaurant. So that, I'm surprised they've got that still marked on the map, because this is meant to be the latest edition of the OS map. But the Yew Tree's been closed for ages. But we have got the one in Lugwardine is still going, I think, isn't it? Unless anyone corrects me. The Crown and Anchor, tucked down this side road. I think it was open the last time I went past, and that could be included on the Curlew Walk because it's only just up here. And then I think the Railway Inn is closed at the moment. That would be a point that you could possibly stop at on the Hereford to Leominster Walk. There's the pub in Sutton that's still open. That's a possible walk out up the Lug Valley and round. The pub in Wellington is not open at the moment, but I think there are plans possibly to open it as a community pub. And then heading out this way, well, we did have the Kite's Nest, which would have been ideal as a stopping point. I don't think this one, the Traveller's Rest, I don't think that's open any longer.
It's not, no, it's not.
But you have got Oak Church, which has a very good cafe. A bit of a long way to walk, but for a cycle ride, you can, as I say, you can get using that route round the back of Garnon's Hill, and then coming across here past Scutmill, same name as the one next to the Texaco garage in Hereford. Not quite sure what the origin is. I'm sure Andy Andy would be able to explain that, Andy Tatchell. And then, yeah, the Portway Inn and the Oak Church one of possibilities. Sadly, we lost one of the very best located pubs of all. Don't know if does anyone remember it. We'll ask this as a general question. Which, sorry, Puss. Here, the Ancient Camp Inn. Going there when it was open? Anyone remember it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It was a great pub.
it's superb.
It's been closed for a long time though. So
It has, yes. It was here. So you're basically looking straight along the Wye Valley over Brainton Common. And this network of paths, if you've never explored it, well worth exploring. If there was one spot where I think I'd be more likely to see an otter than anywhere else, it would be down on this footpath here, past the pumping station. Very, very quiet spot along there. No houses. And then Tuck Mill is a really interesting little spot here. And that's a point that's also worth mentioning. As someone who's just acquired my bus pass, the idea of catching a bus out of Hereford, knowing that you've made that journey, and then walking back in, there are lots of possibilities to do that as another way of getting a little bit further out of Hereford. And if you choose your buses right, like a morning bus that's basically heading to one of the neighbouring towns, then it's a really good way of doing a slightly longer point-to-point walk, walking back into Hereford. So there's a very good route from Cleahonga, where there's a fair bus service, but lots of things of interest there. This is a glacial overflow channel, for example, which is a little stream with little tiny wiggly meanders, which are related to the present stream, but the valley has much bigger meanders, which are related to a much bigger stream, probably carrying meltwater at the end of the Ice Age. So a really interesting, secret, tucked away little valley there, leading down to this remote mill. And you can follow that and then come back in. Have to do a bit of road walking, but it's a very quiet road, this one. And then you can come in here, or you can go up to the church, and then cut across that way. Any other thoughts from anybody? Anyone seen otters on any particular section of the river regularly?
Yeah, does anybody have anywhere that they go like for particular wildlife sightings or particular things that appeal to them, like otter spotting or particular bird spotting? No?
Worth mentioning the fritillaries down at Lug Meadows,
Yes.
appearing in the next few weeks.
Yep. So we are coming down the old Wildlife Trust headquarters. The fritillaries are generally most dense in this kind of area. And on the 12th of April, it's on the Trust website, but we'll mention it here as well. There is there's a Fratillary Walk, which has been for many years, was a regular feature, but COVID has put paid to that for a couple of years, but it's back on again this year. Yeah. So that will be the 12th of April. It's a morning event, is it? Do they run a series of them? Do you know, Sarah?
Very good question. 11:30 till 3:30. So I think there's a number of walks happening that day.
They usually just get a batch of people together to make a group and then head off. And there's people doing it in like a relay. But yes, I should be looking out for them because I'm doing Duke of Edinburgh Award training with students from Bishop's School here on Saturday and Sunday. So we will be down on Lug Meadows. We'll have a look, see how the fritillaries are doing. Bit early for them. There might be one or two coming up though. They sometimes are in March. There is, of course, this new road, which many people will have seen, that cuts across the fields here, heading for the biodigester at Court Farm, which is these circles here on the map, which draws a lot of traffic, particularly at certain times of year. And I think the road was put in to avoid traffic having to come through Hereford and Hampton Bishop, but I don't see that much use of it.
Have you walked that road, Nick?
I have a friend who has. It's not a public right of way, but neither is it gated. But it is all of this is private land because the access land is over the other side. Yeah, it's over the other side of the Luggree. And this is closed to the public anyway, this bit here. I should just maybe mention that on the survey map, around about 2000, the Labour government at the time introduced the right to roam, which created all this land where you do not have to stick to a public footpath. You basically have the right to roam across it. Although I think that is not true of this area here because it's an area where the curlews breed. So the trust try to restrict public access to it. Don't know whether they can insist on that because it is, as it shows on the map, it's access land. But it's often a way of spotting an area of common land on a map. A lot of common land has ended up being designated as access land. So if you're looking at your Ordnance Survey map, and it's an up-to-date one, published since 2000, it should have some big patches like this. Black Mountains, for example, would have a lot of this land, but also little tiny patches of common land, including some trust reserves, like the one at Michaelchurch, Essex. Zoom out for that. I mean, if we're looking slightly further afield, then there are some superb walks out around some of the trust reserves, which are what appear in the Trust magazine. Every edition has a walk that I've put in there, going back several years now, and that comes out 3 times a year. But there is a collection of the book of these walks in Herefordshire Wild Walks, which you can get from Queenswood or from the Trust shop in Ledbury, and also from the Town Hall. The Tourist Information Centre in the Town Hall has got some copies. I made sure there were some there before this talk. Where are we? We get little tiny pockets. Yeah, there we are. We've got Christopher Cadbury Reserve here. But if we go down towards Michaelchurch, Essex, whoops, a little bit too far. Yeah, Cannon Tump, that's the one. You look at this in the middle of the screen and then zoom in. Tiny little bit of access land, which is a Wildlife Trust reserve. Really, really nice little spot. Great views of the Black Mountains from there. And you can find these dotted around all over.
Excuse me, with regard to the OS maps, have you access to them? You can subscribe, I believe. Is that the case, Nick?
Yes. It's about 20, maybe it's gone up to 25 quid a year.
Excuse me.
And that's what I'm using here is my Ordnance Survey map subscription, which does also work on the phone. And I have to say, as starting as a junior navigator with my dad in the back of the car in the 1960s, so we're probably looking at nearly 60 years of using paper maps. I have found that doing it on the phone is remarkably easy. There are various features that you just cannot do with a map. for instance, if you want to say what's that mountain in the distance, you can zoom right out and actually see great distances, and work out, well, that's north, so that must be Clee Hill or whatever. And you can do that on your phone. And I'm not a great fan of apps, but the Ordnance Survey app is one that really does work.
And presumably you don't have the folds to deal with when you're trying to get to the place that's right next to the fold, and you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, on the map blowing around because you have to turn it over, and that sort of issue. And the map case catching the wind and smacking you in the face, and all those other delights that you don't necessarily have to worry about in the phone. And battery life on phones, the Ordnance Survey map app does not seem to drain the battery very much, and it will work without no, actually it does need an internet signal. You do need to have your mobile data, so there is an additional cost to using it on your phone. You've got to have a data credit on your phone, but
And presumably be in some sort of network where you can have that connection.
You can download it before you go.
Yeah. Which
You've
means
downloaded a certain section of it, then that bit will be fine. The rest of it you might not be able to see.
Good.
Yeah.
That's quite useful.
It does have a wonderful feature called Augmented Reality, which you press that button and it opens up the camera on the phone. And if you hold the camera up to the view, it will actually name all the mountains and towns that you can see. However, you need a very special phone to do that. They're usually the really high-end ones. It's a bit too gimmicky. If it works, it's wonderful, but not many people find it works on their phone. But just having access to the maps is very useful, and you can plan and share routes on this mapping app. But of course, you've always got the option of buying the paper maps, but they are quite expensive now. But the little book of walks has all the maps with a license, because the Wildlife Trust has a license to reproduce Ordnance Survey maps. I think they get that as a charity, or maybe they have to pay for it, but at a reduced rate. But in terms of, you know, buying Ordnance Survey maps, 3 Ordnance Survey maps now would just about cover your subscription to OS Maps. And of course, the subscription covers the whole country. So I think on balance, it's worth it.
Yeah, it does sound like it might be value for money, as they say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we can find routes, and where are we? There's a good one there. My routes. If we just have a quick look at one that I just done, Woolhope Reserves Walk. This is one I've just prepared. It's not been published yet, but it will be. I think we can do a 3D fly through. All of this comes included in the map subscription. It is fun. Well, for a geography teacher anyway. This is starting at Westington Pasture, heading out round the corner of Westington Court, Woolhope Hills in the background, and it then takes us through Woolhope Village and heads out up towards Foundhope, actually. It's not working as smoothly as it usually does. It's not bad, but here we've got the ridges of the limestones that we're climbing up onto here. And we eventually end up going through Nup End Wood. The River Wye and Foundhope are just visible on the right there. And then we are now dropping down along Common Hill, where the Trust has quite a few reserves. And we're dropping down into the gap from Foundhope Village on the left towards Woolhope, which is off to the right. This little loop we're going around now is through a wonderful reserve called Nup End Wood. Cherry Hill is straight ahead there, which is where a lot of people do dog walking. And then round here, we're coming up, this is Hoff Woods in the background there. Quite a lot of runners and cyclists, mountain bikers use Hoff Woods. coming along the bottom edge of Hoff Wood past Rudge End Quarry, going up into Hoff Woods again, almost in the very middle of the Woolhope Dome now, and then dropping back down to towards the starting point. This is Broadmoor Common, which I think got mentioned earlier. Oh no, it's somebody else I was talking to about Broadmoor Common. This is the road across from Mordeford to Woolhope Village. And then here we are coming back into the start, which is the car park at Westington. Not sure I can stop that. Yes, I can. There we go. Out of that. But yeah, little features like that are quite fun, but also
Quite useful, really.
It is quite useful being able to visualize a walk. You can also draw it, get a profile of how hilly it is. To close that, really, I'm not quite sure how I do that. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So yeah, we've still got all the other walks. And the other thing, of course, is that you can get it on the different scales. The 1 to 50 is preferred by some people if they're driving, because you see a much bigger area. So perhaps if you were heading out somewhere, you might use the 1 to 50, and then you can zoom in and get the 1 to 25,000. Any other thoughts or comments from anybody?
We were hoping people would bring their own walks along to share with us.
Has anyone spotted a path in Hereford that they know that I haven't yet mentioned? There's one here that's a useful shortcut, which we know well from the Yaser Brook and our sampling along Wide Marsh Walk. But these two paths are good little kind of snippets to avoid walking alongside the main roads. This is Wide Marsh Common, and there's a couple of nice little paths here. This is it's not technically a public right of way, but we believe that Herefordshire Council are going to adopt it. Can
you zoom in a bit there, Nick?
Yep. So this is the boxing club, and this is the Sixth Form College and Westfields playing fields down here, and this is the headquarters of the recycling group, which was once a sports pavilion. Sun Valley, Avara Foods is over here, and this is all Heineken. This is the site of the former Bulmers Railway Museum, this triangle of railway tracks. But we've got a path along here that runs beside the Wide Marsh Brook, on which the Brook Project has done a lot of work. And it does mean that you can cut through from the Courtyard Theatre here, along Penhaligon Way. You can then cut back through here and pick up this footpath. This is an interesting path because it has a footbridge that goes over the truckway. This is a great big car park for the trucks from Heineken, and they drive to and fro underneath a footbridge. But the thing about the footbridge is it really gets you quite high, because it's got to be high enough for the trucks to get underneath. So when you're up on the footbridge there, you can actually see out of the city towards the Black Mountains, without paying to go up the cathedral tower, well, or making a donation to go up the cathedral tower.
It is, however, the bane of cyclists, because if you could go along Wide Marsh Way and then cut across, there's a beautiful route up beside the brook, which is a bicycle and walkway. And but carrying your bike up and over the bridge is beyond some of us.
We gathered that it used to be owned by Heineken, but apparently the local authority have taken it on as their responsibility. But as yet, they haven't made it cycle friendly. There's a kind of halfway house, which would be to put ramps that you could wheel your bike up the steep steps. Still hard work, but better than carrying it. But then there are a whole load of paths here along which you can walk alongside the brook. Not marked as public rights of way, but they're now adopted by the council. You can get right the way through there, cross the Azer Road, all the way up here, all the way along here, right the way up here. And then there's another public footpath that takes you out. I think Nikki Geeson went out with the Richard Bavin's artists group and explored some of these footpaths right past the new Whitecross School and nice little secluded church here. And then you can explore this lovely pond, Huntington Court. And then the footpath continues right the way along, right out to Roman Road. And then you can even connect through even further and get out onto some of these footpaths following the brook. So a walk along the Yaser Brook right to the point that it enters the administrative boundary of Hereford is quite possible with very little road walking. Hereford's got quite a few quiet sort of internal walkways and cycleways. Some of which I'm still exploring. I wouldn't claim to have been along all of them. And as I say, this one, if you don't know it, this one is well worth exploring. This one links onto it. This is coming down. This is B&Q. So there's actually a footpath that connects through onto this network here. Very useful. Oh, this is another nice little shortcut through here. And it actually goes across the top of Aylstone Tunnel. Because coming in here is the canal. This is the old Homer trading estate, which is on the site of a tile works. And as the canal comes in, here, there is a tunnel portal. You can still see the entrance and there is water in the tunnel, which then curved round. The other tunnel portal is there, that whole thing there. And then it would have, the canal would have come in a trench here and curved round beside the railway line and would have come in somewhere here. This is Brook Retail Park. And the canal, the line of the canal is somewhere tucked in here. And then of course, talking Nature Trust stuff, this is the Essex Arms Sports Ground, which is being proposed and championed as an urban wetland. And Nikki Geeson and I have already sent to the Herefordshire Council and others some proposals for some new walkways, including one that would come from the new medical centre and make its way along the edge of a potential urban wetland to emerge somewhere near Canal Street. This is Canal Street here. And a walkway that came along there and then down next to the walkway. Are you going to go there and explore it with me? Yeah, I don't think so. You hardly ever go beyond the front door. Yeah, quite a few opportunities there for new walkways in the city.
Nick, we do just have a comment from Paddy,
Yeah.
who is saying that his fave walk is on south of the riverbank, once you're over the Canary Bridge.
Yes, yeah.
And carry on all the way along the river for a mile and a bit, all the way to Home Lacey Road.
Ah, yes, Sink Farm. Yeah.
Over the road and up Dynador Hill.
Yes.
And back.
Yeah.
And curlies galore right now.
Wow.
Ah, right. Okay, so you come up here and then, yes, very short section of road. And then you're up onto the hill. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, can you, now can you zoom out a tiny bit, Nick, so we can
zoom out?
Yeah, just a little. Yes, okay. So the walk is, all right.
Yeah, it's I mentioned turning in here along the permission path, but if you carry straight on, you go past the former walled garden of Rotherwas House. You must not go up there. The landowner really dislikes that. That's why they put in the permission path. But you carry on along the riverbank, and yeah, you go opposite the bunch of carrots. You come close to the B road here, but if I zoom in there, the two footpaths almost meet, and you can then carry on up there. I have been told by somebody with local knowledge that there are moves to re-establish this as some kind of permission path. I think the negotiations are a bit delicate, but it would mean that you could walk along the former railway line all the way out to Home Lacey. Yeah, where you pick up another public footpath. Because this road is not too good for walking. It was mentioned on the original slowway to Ross, but anyone who knows it knows that it's not too clever for cycling, let alone walking. Whereas these are very, very quiet. And yeah, you can drop into Dindor village here, and this path is quite good, taking you up. And then, yeah, you can come up onto this point here and work your way round. There is a permission path across here, which interestingly isn't marked on this map, but you can, as another nice local walk, you can come from this corner of the field, and there's definitely signs and permissions to come along the bottom of these gardens and get in to Dindor Camp on that corner, which is very useful. You haven't got to drop all the way down and come round. You can directly access it. So if you're doing that walk I set up through the orchard, you can come up this path. The great views back over the city, even from here. It's a bit of a haul up, but well worth it, because the views back across South Herefordshire from this point are great. And then you come up here, round and into the back of Dindor, and then you can walk. Doesn't show it as access land, but I think it's still owned by Herefordshire Council. It's council land. I think they still manage it. If not, the local community have taken it on. But you can definitely get in there and walk all around that. And from the bank here, these ramparts, just to the left of that aerial, round about there, there's a gap with tremendous views across the city. Really great. Thank you, Paddy. That is a good one to follow along the riverbank there. Yeah. If you wanted to go to Mordeford that way, the winds of the river make it quite a long walk. Nice, but it is quite a long way. I think there's an Earth Heritage Trust leaflet, a landscape trail on that one. Pretty sure I've explored one there. The Stank is an ancient flood protection bank that's been modified over the years. Any other thoughts or preferences? No one's mentioned Watery Lane here.
Go on, mention it then.
Yeah, it's actually, it is private, but a lot of people have used it, and I think there are moves for the local authority to adopt it. It is very, very muddy, but it was the original way up and over Dindor Hill. It's quite an ancient lane. I think some private horse riders use it. It does get very churned up. I tried to go up it on a mountain bike. It was completely impossible. But it wouldn't be too bad walking. And it is another way of going up, because Watery Lane itself is pretty quiet. As I've already said, you can get to it through the Rotherwas Industrial Estate. You come out here and you can walk along Watery Lane and go across there. I think there are signs at this point that give you the impression that it's private. You can't go any further, but a lot of people do, and it brings you up there to that point. But to be honest, this is a really nice walk on these footpaths here. And somewhere down here, I think it was on this path, which is a surface crossing, on the gatepost, I found an owl pellet, which is probably a barn owl hunting. It's just their kind of ground. There's quite a lot of warehouses and redundant buildings. Also worth mentioning, Edgelands. Don't know if anyone knows anything about Edgelands. Geographers call it the rural-urban fringe. All of this area we've been discussing around the edge of Hereford counts as Edgelands. It's where you get the sewage works, the industrial estates, the car showrooms, and there's a really good book published in 2011 called Edgelands. It's by a couple of poets, and it's great. It's slightly tongue-in-cheek, celebrating them as a kind of a lost wilderness. And it's got chapters on all kinds of slightly left field looks at things, including desire lines and the way that you know, the planners might lay out their estates with paths, but people inevitably take different paths that are actually more logical for someone who is going to the corner shop from such and such a street. There are lots of those desire lines that are worth exploring in Moor Park. We see quite a few of them when we're doing our tree planting and the like. In fact, we have to take account of them. But this is a public right of way here. God knows why it does that. Don't know what that's about. But most people, pretty obviously, walk straight across. And there are quite a few of these where people are walking their dog or walking to get to the shops. And if you look at it on Google Maps, then you can see where the desire lines are, but they're not drawn by planners or map makers. But that's a geographer's sidetrack.
Right. Well, unless there's anybody else with any of their own favorites, should we just say that's it? And thank you, Nick, for all the ideas, because with this lovely weather, I'm feeling very inspired now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, quite a few of the walks from Hereford are in the little book, which is £5.
Okay.
With maps. All profits go to the Wildlife Trust. And as I say, you can get a copy of that from the Tourist Information Centre in the Town Hall. But also there's a whole load more that are coming out regularly in each edition of the Wildside magazine, which is the Trust magazine. And quite a few of them are on the Trust website as well. Might be worth highlighting that. If I quickly show people that so they can find some walks on the Trust website. What we've got, it's not giving me what I want to do. I want to go to Google. Oh, that's not right. There we go. I haven't actually got it saved as a favourite. What an admission. I think it comes under the Explore tab. Herefordshire Wildlife Trust. Yeah, there we go. Get the home page up. Hopefully everybody can see that. There we go. Yeah, I think if you do Explore, landscape and wildlife walks. Yeah, so Explore on the top line there. And there are quite a lot of opportunities there, including some that we've put on Google Maps. But that Brainton walk, for example, not the extension that Sarah suggested, but the one that cuts straight up to Wyvale Wood. But the map that's included does show the bit to Upper Brainton there. So there's those. How do I go back there? There's a whole load of others there, different guided walk in Hereford City there. others further afield. And then it's even got the slow way from Hereford to Ross is on there, a cycle route around Dinmore Hill. But then we've also got this Hampton Meadow loop, a tree trail. This is one that Nikki Geeson put together. There we go. Got an interactive map there, which is drawn in Google Maps. So it's not an Ordnance Survey map, but it's rather nice because when you click on the images, it gives you a photograph. And there's some suggestions here on the kinds of plants that you might well see in the hedgerows. So all of that is on the Trust website. This was another experiment we used with Google, which is actually quite a flexible way of mapping and including photographs in it, which of course isn't there on the Ordnance Survey website. So it's another way of recording, and you can actually share routes on this. So there's a few of those in there, landscape and wildlife walks. And just very quickly, Ice Age ponds, if you're interested in following up any of that, if you click on the Ice Age ponds and you go to Sarah, at the conference, Ice Age Ponds Conference, walks and tours, start exploring. There's some fantastic stuff in there. Walks, cycle tours, car tours. You can download the app. But if we just have a quick look at the walks and we do the Brainton walk, we can see that that includes information. This is the extension that Sarah was talking about. And these are the dry valleys formed by the meltwater under the ice. We've got some dramatic photographs there. Some really nice guidance, which you can get on your phone, actually saying, go over this style and then turn right. It's another way of directing on a walk. This is Lidar Imagery, which is getting pretty impressive, but this is the thing that I love. Look at that. That is a Lidar map west of Hereford. And you can really clearly see the Wye Gorge here with the floodplain at the bottom of the gorge. The fact that there are these really quite steep river cliffs and some of these strange, this is that overflow channel I talked about going down to Tuck Mill, just down here. This LiDAR imagery, I won't go into the science of how it works, but it does produce great detail. You can even, in some cases, see medieval field systems occurring. You know, there's some strange stripes in these fields here. Railway bridges and cuttings, lots of really nice detail there, with superimposed information on where the River Wye used to flow and where it now flows. So all of that available free on the Trust website.
Okay, a few comments before we go. Thanks, Nick. And that's from Brian and then from Emma Leach. Thank you very, very much for the talk. Really great to visualize the past special metals from our walk back in January. Dan Cox.
Oh, that's Dan. Excellent. Yes. Hi, Dan.
So I think we'll wrap it up there, and just to for people to keep your eyes open for city branch events coming up, because after April the 5th, when we finish our online talks, we'll actually be having events where we can meet each other in person, and hopefully sort of have crowd ID sessions out in the world. So please check the website for those events, and hope to see you in the great outdoors sometime soon, as well as on April 5th for our online talk. So thanks, Nick. Thanks, Sarah. And thank you all for coming.